The National News Desk, locally covered, nationally connected.
I can say this, I want those boats taken out, and if we have to, we'll attack on land also, just like we attack on sea.
The Trump administration once again defending boat strikes in the Caribbean amid growing fallout over a second strike on a particular vessel. This as impending U.S. military action on land in Venezuela looms.
Trump accounts will be the first, I guess you could say, real trust funds for every American child.
Then investing in America's future, how children across the country will benefit from one of the largest private donations in American history. Plus, it's Election Day in Nashville in a surprisingly tight special election. Why Republicans might have to worry about a district Trump won by 20-plus points. Good evening. I'm Taylor Murray. Welcome to the National News Desk, America's News Now. President Donald Trump held his 9th and final cabinet meeting of the year today at the White House. It comes amid growing scrutiny over boat strikes, specifically a deadly double strike against an alleged boat from Venezuela in September. The president defended that action and repeated his threat of potential U.S. action on land in Venezuela, but still did not give more specifics.
And they're down because we're doing these strikes, and we're going to start doing those strikes on land, too. You know, the land is much easier. It's much easier. And we know the routes they take. We know everything about them. We know where they live. We know where the bad ones live. And we're going to start that very soon, too.
We're also hearing from Secretary of War Pete Hegseth about the follow-up boat strike which killed remaining survivors that is now prompting war crimes allegations. Hegseth says that the second strike was ordered by an admiral in charge. He said that he didn't stick around for the remainder of the September 2nd mission he authorized following the initial strike, but believes the admiral made the right call. Hegseth says boat strikes on alleged narco-terrorists will continue.
As I've said, and I'll say again, we've only just begun striking narco boats and putting narco terrorists at the bottom of the ocean.
Meanwhile, talks over the boat strikes carried out by the U.S. military also playing out in Congress today. There is bipartisan support for an investigation into the follow-up strike in September and whether it constituted a war crime. House Republican Mike Johnson says secondary strikes are not unusual and he won't prejudge if it violated the law.
We're going to have to look at that. I'm sure Congress has a right to look at it. I don't know how much of the tape should be released because I'm not sure how much is sensitive with regard to national security and all that. I haven't had a chance to review it, so I'm not going to prejudge it.
Shredders may be going. Evidence may be destroyed. We need to demand that it be preserved. And there's no indication that we're going to see an effective, prompt, penetrating investigation.
In other news now, tonight, the Trump administration appears positioned to implement stricter rules on traveling to the U.S., not just on who can immigrate to our country, but who can come here at all. National correspondent Christine Frizzell brings us the details from Washington.
The Trump administration calling it an asylum overhaul, with new extensive restrictions put in place, escalating what was already a widespread immigration crackdown.
Our country's at a tipping point. We could go one way or the other, and we're going to go the wrong way if we keep taking in garbage into our country.
Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem in a post saying she's recommending a, quote, full travel ban on every damn country that's been flooding our nation with killers, leeches, and entitlement junkies.
If you come to this country, you contribute. You don't defraud the system. You don't use our social safety net as a hammock. You don't harm or kill Americans or otherwise commit any crimes against them.
The change is prompted by the shooting of 2 National Guard troops last week. The suspect in the country as part of an asylum program for those who assisted the United States in Afghanistan. While he specifically was granted asylum under President Trump's administration, many top officials continue to blame his predecessor, President Joe Biden.
He opened up the borders, let anybody come in that wanted to. He put them on airplanes. He let them through our airports. If they could figure out a way to get to our shores and in our country, he just opened the door and invited them in. So it's our job to get them out.
Critics raising red flags about announcements by the White House to pause asylum cases, especially for the thousands of people who worked alongside American troops overseas.
In the case of these zero units, they went out and executed highly classified special forces missions and intelligence community missions. And we made a promise to them. We said, if you stand with us, we'll stand with you.
Now, President Trump had already flagged 19, quote, countries of concern likely to be impacted by these new restrictions. The Department of Homeland Security now says it will announce new additions soon, with about 30 countries reportedly set to be on that list, Taylor.
And Christine, all of this comes as President Trump also seems to be setting his sights on Somali immigrants living in Minnesota. So what can you tell us?
Yeah, the president over the last several days has mentioned Somali immigrants multiple times, with a particular focus on Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, who he's publicly disagreed with. He's also pointed to several fraud investigations in which people who were born in Somalia and are living in Minnesota are tied to these allegations of COVID fraud and housing fraud. Hundreds of people who work for the state's Department of Human Services have also blamed the governor, Tim Walz, for ignoring that fraud and retaliating against whistleblowers.
In Washington, D.C., Christine Frizzell, thank you. Well, Rob Manella Lockenwall, the man accused of targeting and shooting 2 National Guard members last week in Washington, D.C., killing one of them, pled not guilty today in a virtual court hearing. Lockenwall is still hospitalized after he was shot and subdued last Wednesday. D.C. Superior Court Magistrate Judge Renee Raymond ordered Lockenwall to be held without bail once he's released from the hospital, despite the defense team saying there's not enough evidence to suggest Lockenwall is a danger to the community. The U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia applauded the judge's decision.
I think anyone about whom we know nothing, and make no mistake, there's no vetting, and the fact that we don't have a rap sheet on this guy as if he was born in the Bronx or in the district should tell us that, he is clean. We have no idea who he is.
Judge Raymond ultimately said there is enough evidence for now to support the claim that Lockenwall crossed the country with a weapon. The next court date is January 14th for a preliminary pretrial hearing. The city of Nashville is heading to the polls in a crucial special election that could impact the entire House of Representatives as Republicans cling to the slimmest of margins. But upstart Democratic candidate Afton Bain is polling within the margin of error over Republican Matt Van Epps. Joining us now from a polling location in North Nashville, the National News Desk, Karen Aguilar, who's been covering this race. Karen.
Taylor, well, tonight's voter turnout could be a toss-up. Political science professor Mark Short tells me that voter turnout may be challenging because it is a special election, which is run. Short tells me that some Republicans are less likely to vote in this election because they believe they've already clinched the victory, while other Republicans will show up to the polls because Afton Bain has made some comments like "I hate Nashville," and not to mention President Donald Trump's endorsement of Matt Van Epps. And speaking about President Donald Trump, that's exactly the reason Short tells me that Democrats will show up in droves to vote for Bain, and another reason Short tells me that voters will cast their ballot for Bain is because of affordability. Short tells me it's an issue that matters most to voters in this district.
And Nashville's been a pretty safe district for Republicans, and President Trump, who has backed Van Epps, won that district 2 years ago by 22 points. So why exactly has this race gotten so close, Karen?
Well, political science professor Mark Short tells me that it all boils down to affordability. Again, it is an issue that really resonates with voters, and Afton Bain has been campaigning heavily on that issue, while Short tells me Matt Van Epps hasn't really addressed that issue, and instead he's relied on the negative comments made by Bain and the endorsement by President Donald Trump. Short tells me that this tight race is very unusual, but it is an indicator of what's to come for the midterm elections.
All right, we'll have to see how things play out there tonight. Nashville, Tennessee, Karen Aguilar, thank you. President Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, is in Russia, meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin, seeking to end Putin's 4-year war in Ukraine. A senior advisor to Putin said the conversations were productive, but that more work remains. And before the meeting, Putin threatened the European Union, saying their demands on Russia are blocking an agreement. Now, he also said Russia is ready to go to war with the EU if they wage it. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky is in Ireland today, saying the goal of everyone is to end the war.
America is taking serious steps to end this war, one way or another, and our task, and I'm sure that this is our common task for everyone in Europe, is to really end this war, their war, not just to get a pause in the fighting.
And Zelensky also said he may meet with U.S. representatives soon in hopes of narrowing the differences in peace talks. Right now, an intensified search for an escaped inmate in Georgia continues. According to Rockdale County deputies, Timothy Shane is considered armed and dangerous. He's pictured here on your screen. Officials say he called for an Uber last night to a home in South Rockdale after leaving a stolen Pontiac at a Publix. But deputies could not find him at that home. Shane escaped from a hospital Monday morning after a suicide attempt. Anyone with information should call police. A trial for a Massachusetts man accused of dismembering and murdering his wife back in 2023 is now underway. Brian Walsh has denied killing Anna Walsh, but did plead guilty to misleading police and improperly disposing of Anna's body. Brian's lawyer argued he lied to police out of fear and that Anna's death was sudden and unexplainable. Prosecutors pointed to evidence like surveillance videos and Google searches.
At 4:54 a.m., the MACBook searched best way to dispose of a body for a white man wearing a mask and dark hair buys several items, including a Tyvek suit and cutting instruments such as shears.
And that trial will continue tomorrow. Well, mass killings in the United States are at a near 20-year low. This is according to a multi-organization run database. The most recent mass killing over the weekend in California was the 17th in 2025, the fewest since 2006. The recent high was back in 2023, and since then, there has been 2 years of more than a 20% downturn. Experts say the decline likely represents a return to normal levels after violent crime peaked during the 2020 COVID-19 pandemic. Luigi Mangione, the man accused of killing United Healthcare CEO, back in New York State court today for the second day of a pretrial hearing. Mangione and his lawyers are looking to block prosecutors from using items taken from his backpack during his arrest last year as evidence because police did not have a search warrant, they say. Defense attorneys also argue police may have spoken with the suspect for around 15 to 20 minutes before reading his Miranda rights, which would make anything he said in that time inadmissible in court. The arresting officer testified today. Mangione lied to him about his name and seemed to act suspicious before he was searched and arrested. Well, the Supreme Court justices seemed to side with a faith-based pregnancy center over the state of New Jersey. The court heard testimony today about a crisis pregnancy center's challenge on a state investigation. New Jersey's Attorney General sent a subpoena to First Choice for donor information as they investigate whether the center is misleading people to discourage abortions. The center says the demand for a list threatens its First Amendment rights, and the conservative justices seem skeptical in their questioning of the state AG, as did liberal Justice Elena Kagan, who said the state's arguments were not very reassuring. A ruling on this is expected next summer. Coming up, where up to 10 inches of snow is forecast and where freezing rain could make roads dangerous. Then an announcement about a new federal program to invest in America's children and how much it could cost taxpayers. Plus, why President Trump believes Democrats want to pack the Supreme Court with more liberal justices and what he's urging Republicans to do about it. We'll be right back. Well, right now, millions of people are under winter weather advisories or storm warnings as the first major snowstorm of the season treks across the Northeast. That includes cities like Troy and upstate New York, seen on the right of your screen there. Now, interior New England and the northern mid-Atlantic are getting heavy snow today. Take a look at this with 5 to 10 inches expected. Some areas could get over a foot of snow. Forecasters warned freezing rain in the Appalachians could create dangerous roadway conditions, and it comes after the Midwest and Southeast were hit with sleet and snow last night. Seems like everyone's affected with this. All right, well, a historic gift from the founders of Dell Technologies, Michael Dell and his wife Susan Dell, could supercharge a new federal savings program for children across the country. Our national correspondent Kayla Gaskins has that story from Washington.
Tucked inside the one big beautiful bill signed by President Trump on the 4th of July is a new federal program creating investment accounts for America's children, dubbed Trump accounts.
Trump accounts will be the first, I guess you could say, real trust funds for every American child.
Each baby born between January 1st, 2025 and December 31st, 2028 will receive a one-time $1,000 government deposit, money they can't touch until they turn 18. Families can contribute an additional $5,000 each year. If maxed out, Treasury estimates the account could grow to nearly $1.9 million by age 28.
It's a very special moment.
On Tuesday, billionaire Dell Technologies founder Michael Dell and his wife Susan are making a massive commitment to expand that program, giving $250 for every child born from 2016 through 2024 who live in zip codes with household incomes below $150,000.
It really gives them a shot at the American dream.
The Dell's $6.25 billion donation will help roughly 25 million American kids. The money will be deposited directly into these new tax-free Trump accounts.
You know, we believe the smartest investment that we can make is an investment in children. We are confident that others will join us because we all understand the incredible impact that a gift like this can have on the lives of young Americans.
While Republicans are newly supportive of the baby bonds policy, Democrats have long advocated for it. Historically, Republicans were against the policy due to principle and price tag, seeing it as an expensive government handout. The current Trump plan is estimated to cost taxpayers $15 billion. Families can begin opening accounts for children by July of next year. In Washington, I'm Kayla Gaskins.
There will likely be far fewer seasonal jobs available this holiday season. That's according to a new National Retail Federation survey, which expects up to 40% less seasonal hiring at stores. And retailers say one reason is economic uncertainty. Now, retail experts add that fewer full-time employees are quitting their jobs, so there's less demand for these seasonal workers. Well, Prada is buying Versace. The Prada Group just finalized that purchase of the fashion rival for nearly $1.4 billion. Prada heir Lorenzo Bertelli said he doesn't plan to make any quick executive changes at Versace, but he pointed out that the company has been underperforming. Prada has said the decades-old Versace brand has significant untapped growth potential. Well, former Honduras President Juan Hernandez is now out of prison after a pardon from President Trump. Hernandez's wife announced his release today on X, thanking Trump. Now, according to the U.S. Bureau of Prisons, he was released from a West Virginia penitentiary yesterday. Last year, Hernandez was sentenced to 45 years for helping to traffic drugs into the United States. A quick return home is not guaranteed. He likely faces charges in Honduras. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering issues that matter to you. We're taking the pulse of America, and we start in Pennsylvania, where some homeless shelters are at capacity during the winter storms.
The Bethesda Mission is one of multiple homeless shelters across Harrisburg, and like many, it has reached its limit.
We've been in capacity for about the last 3 years straight. Yes, we are. We're at our capacity right now.
But despite being at capacity, the organization is doing everything it can to keep its doors open to new faces who need to escape the cold.
What we do is we try to do what we can. So for some people, that might mean getting them a winter jacket, getting them some clothes, recommending to them another service, another ministry in the area to provide whatever we can.
We don't have a time limit on the guests, we have a performance limit. So as long as an individual is pursuing the goals that they have decided upon with their life coach and they're working towards those things, we will keep them there till they can get those things accomplished.
Nearly 5 months after the Hill Country flooding disaster, residents we spoke with say a flood warning system with sirens can't come soon enough. This past summer, lawmakers passed several flood preparedness bills, including one that mandates the installation of outdoor warning sirens in flash flood-prone areas. The governor signed it into law in September, but so far, nothing has been installed.
It just seems shocking that it has not been funded yet by the state. This needs to get done, particularly with the summer camps coming back online next year. And look, they're asking the camps to comply with some really high bars.
Terry Hall with We the People Liberty in Action says steps need to happen now.
They're asking the camps to comply with all these things by, basically next May, because that's when the camps would normally start coming online. And yet here the state hasn't done its job in making sure that that siren goes in.
A psychology course essay written by an OU student is in the spotlight after the student received a 0. According to the OU chapter of Turning Point USA, the 650-word essay was written by Samantha Fulnecki for an assignment about how people are perceived based on society's expectations of gender roles. According to TPUSA OU, Fulnecki cited the Bible throughout her essay to support her claims that eliminating gender in society would be, quote, detrimental because that would put people, quote, farther from God's original plan for humans. Fulnecki reached out to Turning Point USA chapter faculty advisor Gary Barksdale for help. He says while he himself wouldn't have given the paper an A, it did not deserve a 0.
Coming up, what President Trump is urging Republicans to do to stop Democrats from gaining more power in Washington. We'll be right back. The president claims Democrats want to pack the Supreme Court with more liberal justices. He's using these allegations to try to get Republicans to get rid of the 60-vote threshold in the Senate, known as the filibuster, to more easily pass his agenda. The National News Desk, Matt Galko, reports from Washington.
We've got to fight for this.
Last month, former Obama administration Attorney General Eric Holder suggested Democrats should make reforming the Supreme Court a top priority if they regain power in Washington, D.C.
Supreme Court reform is something that has to be considered. Term limits, I think, at a minimum, potentially expanding the court is something I think that also should be considered.
President Trump seized on the comments Monday night. In one of 160 posts or reposts in the span of around 4 hours, the president called Holder an Obama sycophant and said Democrats will pack the Supreme Court of the United States if they get the chance, claiming that Holder wants 21 judges instead of the current 9. Recent controversial decisions have increased the calls for court expansion and reform, with none looming larger than the Dobbs decision that overturned Roe v. Wade and the nationwide right to an abortion. The 2022 ruling tanked the court's favorability among Democrats. A survey by the Pew Research Center from September showed only half the country viewed the high court favorably. It was around 70% in 2020 and is highly partisan now. 71% of Republicans viewed the justices positively, compared to just 26% of Democrats.
I'm certain we need these reforms. We need these reforms to restore trust in the courts.
Former President Biden backed reforms, including term limits, a code of ethics, and a constitutional amendment declaring presidents had no immunity for crimes while in office, but he did not back court packing. Trump used Holder's comments to tell Republicans to terminate the filibuster, saying it would lead to easy 2026 and 2028 wins over Democrats.
Republicans need to get off their butts and move, and that's what the president wants to see them do, and that's what the American people are expecting.
Both Republican leaders in Congress, Speaker of the House Mike Johnson and Senate Majority Leader John Thune, have said the filibuster is not on the chopping block despite the president's pressure. Reporting in Washington, I'm Matt Gelka for the National News Desk, America's News Now.
Just a little over a while ago, Speaker Mike Johnson had led the ceremony to light the official Capitol Christmas tree. Look at it. It's beautiful. It stands on the west lawn of the Capitol, and this year's tree is a 53-foot tall red fir from Nevada's National Forest. Well, that does it for this edition of the National News Desk. Thanks for joining us.